catfish were found in Lake Rotoiti in early 2016. They're a serious danger to kura and compete fiercely with other species for food. Elimination will be difficult, so innovative measures are being investigated and will be needed to contain their spread. This work is one of many measures that are underway around the country to protect our waterways from invasive species.
Brown bullhead catfish is one of a number of catfish species that live in the eastern seaboard of the US, stretching really from Canada down to Florida. The brown bullhead catfish is one of the smallest species, and it was brought over here in the late 1800s, as many fish were, like trout and salmon and perch, rudd, all the rest. The female will have 20 to 50,000 eggs, which it can spawn, and they're really interesting in one aspect of their biology. They're a nest guarder. So that means that parents actually take care of their eggs, so they'll fan them to keep them free of sediment and keep their oxygen levels up, and that also prevents other fish from eating them. These are particularly hard to control and eradicate. In fact, it's probably next to impossible. Containment is really our issue here, but what we don't want to see them do is spread through the rest of the Rotorua lakes.
128.
We're not wasting our time trying to control them in an area like this, because if we can achieve containment and stop them getting out, and especially raise the profile with public, because they largely get spread by human activities, and so if we can tell people and educate people of the sort of chaos that they can cause, and the fact that they're relatively contained now and we'd like to keep them that way, that's a big part of the science, is to actually communicate that back to people who then understand that they're here, what they might be doing, and that's what our research is about, and then what we can do about it. And the first thing is to make sure they don't get anywhere else. So the 3,000 or so catfish that have been caught over the last 18 months are particularly useful, because they tell us things about the abundance and the size of the catfish in this lake. They tell us the breeding cycle, and from the dead catfish we can actually find out what they've been eating, and that's an important thing, to see the real threats that they're posing to the fish community and to the kura. And so the research that we're doing, one aspect of it is to find out what size of kura the catfish can eat, and we're doing that by measuring the gape size, the extent to which the fish can open their mouth, and therefore the size of kura that any given size catfish can fit in its gob. So for the next step for the catfish research that we have planned is that Shane and Niwa and us at the university will put in acoustic transmitters in the fish, and we'll have an array of receivers spread around so that we can trace the movements of these fish and just see how much of a challenge we have of which sizes of fish are moving and in what times of the year and how far they're moving.
Sort of 600 or 700 juveniles.
So still in Te Weta Bay?
Still in Te Weta Bay.
Yep.
But then yesterday, they're right through the Waikato River system, including Lake Taupo. They were discovered there in the 1980s. So in terms of threats to our area, geographically it's not far to get from the Waikato River system over to the Rotorua Lake, so there is the potential for transfer of fish, and unfortunately that seems to be the case in this instance. It's unlikely that eggs that are transferred via machinery or contaminated equipment are going to be the source. It's most likely to be live catfish, either intentionally or accidentally. So one of the issues is potentially people leaving their boat trailers on private boat ramps overnight where catfish are present and then moving between waterways. They can survive for a long period out of water. It's estimated 48 hours out of water. So there is the definite potential that's probably one of the main causes. Since March 2016, we've invested a lot in this program. We have a contractor that's setting nets systematically around particularly Lake Rotoiti, but also other Rotorua lakes, to check that catfish aren't present. We've caught close to 5,000 catfish since then. History's told us that eradication of pest fish from water bodies, particularly a water body as large as Lake Rotoiti's, it's a tough job with the current methods that we've got. So we have a research program underway, and we're trying a whole bunch of different options to try and increase our probability of success. So one of the innovative approaches that we decided to undertake was, when we initially discovered the population, we found they were quite localised within Te Weta Bay. the vast majority, 98% of the catch was within this little enclosed bay. We've used cordons in the past to prevent weed fragments from floating out of boat ramps, so we modified it slightly and we've basically closed the entrance to the bay off. It's made out of shade cloth basically, so it's a straight physical barrier. There's a small channel to allow boats in and out, but it's basically trying to prevent the population that's currently in Tuita Bay from moving out and invading other parts of the lake. One of the things we're unsure is how driven they are to leave Tuita Bay, and that's what we're hoping to find through the acoustic study is, are they quite happy in here? Are they spending the entire year here, or are they trying to migrate in and out of the bay? Tuita Bay is perfect environment for catfish. It's shallow, it's weedy, it's got everything they want, and that's why the population seems to be doing so well here.
46, how many did you have?
32.
The community seems really engaged in the program. We get lots of reports and we're happy to follow each of them up. And in terms of the individual boaties and lake users, it's just being a responsible lake user. Make sure your equipment's clean and dry before you move between waterways, because there is the potential to transfer organisms, whether it be a weed or a fish. So it's just being vigilant and being conscious that your potential actions are going to have huge consequences down the road.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.